Hello and welcome to The Ripple Impact, the podcast where we dive into those fascinating small moments, big decisions and unexpected ripples that create waves of change in brands, businesses, leadership and in life. I'm Laura Barber, founder of The Ripple Impact and a brand strategist who spent over 20 years inside global giants like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, helping leaders turn human stories into brand growth. Each week, I sit down with bold thinkers, founders, and what we call our wave maker guests to explore the ripple moments that have shaped their journey and the lessons you can take to transform your own brand and your business. Today, I'm so excited to have Mike Turner here with us on the show. He is the co-founder and managing director of Bird & Blend Tea Company, one of the UK's most loved independent challenger brands, and a business on a mission to reimagine tea and spread happiness. From starting Bird & Blend back in 2012 to building it into an award-winning B Corp certified brand with a loyal cult following, Mike's story is full of brave choices, people-first leadership, and sustainability at scale. Mike, welcome to The Ripple Impact. It is such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Hi, Laura. Pleasure to be here.
Hi, so excited for our conversation today. We met at the wonderful Ideas Fest and had a chat in the field, and we were like, let's have a conversation on our podcast and get to know Bird & Blend and the person behind the brand. So it's wonderful to have you here today.
Well, I hope I live up to the intro you just did.
Do you know what? My guests always say this. I do my lovely introductions and they're like, oh, wow, thank you. I'm like, well, it's your business. It's your bio. It's everything that you've done. So congratulations, because it's a fabulous, fabulous brand. We love at The Ripple Impact to wind back and start at the beginning and those early moments that have really set everything in motion, get to know the person behind the brands, the stories, the highs, the lows, and what has led them to create the business that they have. So I'd love to start with the big ripple impact moments in your life and ultimately what led you to creating Bird & Blend.
Sure. Well, Bird & Blend, I guess, came from Chrissy, who's my co-founder, and I wanting to create a business which could be more than just a business, but could be a positive force for the communities we are in. Take it to kind of ripple impacts. I guess it comes from two big ones in forming us. One was that Chrissy and I don't think either of us had ever thought that we would end up in business. Both of us were kind of passionate, young, angry, maybe a little bit people who both, I think, assumed we'd end up in NGOs or politics or something like that, wanting to change the world. I think for both of us, that perhaps changed a little bit when we dropped into the world of work. Both of us, had jobs from the age of 14 or so. And we realised just how much of a difference where you work makes to your life, even when you're doing a job after school and on Saturdays and that sort of thing. It's already having an impact. Yeah. Scale that to when you're going 40 hours a week, and it has a huge impact on your life. So we started to realize that business can actually be a force for change. Around the same time, I happened to start studying economics, which I can remember thinking might be a bit of a funny one. I wasn't that interested in business, but then finding it really, really fascinating. And again, seeing the possibility to have a huge impact on things. So I think both of us kind of independently moved to thinking business could be an opportunity for us to make the difference in the world that we both want to make. And then the second one was probably the two of us meeting. So we met at uni, we were flatmates in our first year at uni, and realised pretty quickly that we both shared these two things of wanting to make a difference and actually thinking that starting a business might be the way to do it. So it's a bit backwards to most tea companies. Most tea company founders you meet and they say, I went to China or India or wherever and I tried this amazing tea and I wanted to show it to the world. For us, we wanted to create something which could have a real impact on people's lives. The next step was really what the hell it should be. So we went through uni trying to think of stuff, couldn't think of anything, came out, had loads of different ideas, almost sort of started work on a couple of them before landing on tea as a possibility. Yeah. Thinking, well, we'll give it a whirl, and we're still giving it a whirl. We're still seeing 13 years later, still seeing if it works.
I was going to say, I think 13 years in, you're not giving it a whirl anymore.
I don't know if my team would describe it the same way.
Why tea?
Why tea? Well, Chrissy had kind of, interestingly, when we met, I used to drink a lot of, just normal builder's tea. Chrissy didn't drink any tea. Her bedroom, kind of uni halls, was opposite the kitchen. I think she started drinking tea just because we would all be going down there and make it as a way to sort of make friends and meet people. Which if I was a clever marketeer, I'd pull that thread through to the whole of Bird & Blend, wouldn't I? And After uni, so she started drinking tea, same as the rest of us. After uni, she kind of fell into the tea industry a little bit. She ended up working for a couple of companies in the UK, starting off with kind of tea rooms, but started to see that world of it. And she kind of came and said, when we were trying to think of different ideas, I think there could be something here. It's this product which is a bit boring, a bit of a commodity. It's ripe for something to happen. And actually, over on the other side of the Atlantic, that is already happening. It's changing. I thought that was a ridiculous idea. Said, no one's going to spend more money on tea. Like, it's just a warm drink, isn't it? Let's not do that. So convinced her to move to Canada with me. So we moved over to Canada to ski in the days, and I teach skiing in the days and work at a bar at night. And Chrissy fell in with another tea company out there.
She was destined.
And this is it, yeah. And this idea kept on coming up. And I think there was a day where we'd driven to a different resort somewhere. And so we'd had a really early start, and we'd got a McDonald's drive-through for breakfast, which is very on brand for me to say that, isn't it? And I ordered a cup of tea. At the time, I didn't drink coffee. And they offered like 8 choices or something. And I can remember thinking, if at McDonald's drive-through, they're offering me 8 choices at like 5 a.m. or whatever, there's definitely a shift in what tea means over here.
Yeah.
So we kind of got talking about it through that day and said, yeah, let's do it. I wanted to come back to the UK. So we said, well, let's give it a whirl, come back, stay for spring, see what happens. If it works, we'll stay. If it doesn't, we'll come back out here, which is a pretty good gig we've got going on. And again, it seemed to work. And we've just carried on with kind of that attitude ever since, really.
Yeah. It's amazing because, like, as you said, a lot of founders start with tea. They've gone and they've explored it and they want to bring it back to the world. And some start with this big corporate vision, but it almost sounds like she was destined to work in tea from all those different moments of getting involved in the industry. And you're like, well, I'm not really sure. It's just a warm drink. But I don't know, like in the UK, it's like, it's built into the fabric of society. It's like, there's a problem, have a cup of tea. If you're tired, have a cup of tea. If you need to heal yourself, have a cup of tea. It feels really in the fabric of society.
And I think actually that was one of my concerns with it, that it's not weaved into the fabric because of the quality and the experience in the way that we interpret experience. It is just, it's almost like the background noise. It has to be there for comfort. It's and so getting people to see it in a different way was one of the concerns for me. For me, it kind of, I knew that I was interested in customer experience. So everything I'd done really been working in bars and hotels and that sort of thing. So I knew that I kind of knew how to make people smile with products. And tea just didn't seem like something that would be obvious to do that until it kind of hit that it could be. And actually, it's a brilliant thing. That theme of it could be anything is something I'm constantly talking to my team about. I'm saying we're not a tea company, we're a customer experience company. We need to focus on delivering great customer experiences. It just happens that tea is the medium that we're doing it with. Well, actually, tea is a fantastic medium to be doing it with because, as you say, it is kind of ingrained into people's lives. It's a relatively affordable luxury. There's a whole world of what you can do with it, both in terms of taste and flavour and that sort of thing, but also the stories of where it's from and all of that sort of thing. And I guess going back to that, wanting to change the world bit, I'd always kind of thought that the type of NGO I might be interested in might be around economic development. But clearly it's an industry which gives a little bit of that opportunity to get involved in that side as well.
Yeah, fantastic. It's funny because as someone from Yorkshire, tea is definitely built into the fabric of life. And I think my parents drink like 8 cups a day. So it's something that is very ingrained. And it's interesting from a marketing point of view because you're like, oh, I'm not sure we can do this. But from a behavioral point of view, behavioral change, it's something that people are already doing. But to elevate that experience and bring ritual and flavor and interest and stories and elevate the experience is such a wonderful thing to do with, as you said, a product that was quite commoditized.
Yes, for sure. But, there are those opportunities. I think as we start to think about it, the big two, which I often talk about, are Lush and Hotel Chocolate, both of whom kind of fundamentally are doing the same as us, or rather, we're doing the same as them, I guess, of soap's a pretty boring commodity product. Lush cover it in sparkles and huge amounts of customer service, and fundamentally Hotel Chocolate do the same with chocolate. So we are kind of following a trodden path a little bit. It just took us some time to realize that, perhaps.
Yeah. Amazing. And as you said, like, I love the fact that you're saying you're not just selling tea, you're selling an experience, you're selling feelings, you're selling joy and happiness and playfulness and purpose fundamentally. And you guys are a B Corp organization. So purpose is very much baked into who you are as a business. And I've built a cult and loyal following off the back of it. How did you, because a B Corp's not an easy thing to go through. Was purpose always at the heart of what you wanted to do? And what was the moment that you were like, we need to make sure that we continue to grow, but keep our soul? And B Corp is such an important part of that.
Yeah, great question. So purpose was always there because of that wanting to start a business in order to make a difference rather than to make money or whatever other reasons people do it are. It meant that it had to be baked in. And actually, we've got a bit of paper at the office, which is kind of a first piece we did the evening, where I described us having, deciding one day, let's do it. We went to a pub that evening and we sort of started drawing out what we wanted that business to be on a bit of paper. And the very first thing which we listed were about 6 or 7 kind of rules, if you like, or guidelines of what we wanted that business to be about. And it had things on there like, it actually said 0 waste, which we did over time move to be minimal waste, as we realized that being totally 0 waste is very, very difficult. Great customer service, great opportunities for people, all of that sort of thing were written into it right from the beginning. On the B Corp piece, it's an interesting one because we were always a little bit anti-certifications, or at least didn't think certifications worked very well for where we were in the market. B Corp was the first one that we kind of stopped and thought, actually, this could be a good one when it was first coming to the UK, or at least first getting well known in the UK. When we were a couple of years in, I did think maybe we should do this as one of the kind of first companies to be involved. And we decided we don't need to. It's, we're doing our own thing. We don't need to do a load of paperwork and things to prove it, which fundamentally is a lot of what both B Corp and ESG generally is, a lot of paperwork, a lot of analysis. We switched that thinking as we grew. And as we got to the point where it wasn't just Christy and I making the decisions anymore, but we had managers who were making a lot of decisions as well. And we realized that it was one thing for us to try and figure out where we would go down this less commercially viable, but fitting with what the business is about route rather than the kind of obvious business one. It's pretty hard to communicate to managers how they make those decisions, what the right decisions in that sort of situation is. How much do we put on packaging being of a certain quality versus what cost is? Where do you draw the line? And that was where we thought, actually, B Corp could really help with this. The nice thing with B Corp is a load of people are a lot smarter than me and know a lot more about it than me, have kind of assigned points to different things. And they've said, doing X is this much better than doing Y. And so it allowed us to kind of have an auditing system, same as you have for finance. The problem with businesses is that it's really easy to tot up all the financial metrics. And so that makes people naturally follow those financial metrics. They chase numbers. I'm certainly competitive. A lot of our managers are competitive. It's really easy to follow those and say, well, this is the right choice because it's boosting these. But those aren't actually the important numbers. The financial numbers don't really matter. They matter as, in terms of keeping you in business, right? But they're not making the difference of why the business exists. B Corp gave a little bit of that. It gave a kind of auditing system alongside, which we could then start talking about those points and aiming for scores. Slightly been undermined because they're in the process of dropping that point system at the moment. So now we're having to look at different ways to, I guess we've now progressed to a point where we have kind of values and things built through the business, and hopefully people get it.
How have you grown the business and brought on so many more people and, 13 years later, and kept that soul and that brand and that culture as part of your organization? Because when you found it, right, it's, the two of you, it's your baby. But when you grow, how have you really kept that sense of brand and ethos and culture at the heart of what you're doing?
With huge difficulty. That question has been the one which gives me sleepless nights the most. And whilst in some ways we've grown really, really quickly, we've pretty consistently grown about 35% a year now for 13 years, which in some ways to look at it is really fast, but in other ways is quite a slow rate of growth compared to some of the other kind of challenger brands in the UK. And we've kind of deliberately kept it slower than we could have done because of exactly that. We've not taken on private equity money and that sort of thing for exactly that. It's a rate which we felt we could scale. We could keep those values aligned. We could keep the relationships with that team. So one is by seeing it as a limiting factor on growth and building it into our growth plans in the same way as you would build in finance and management capacity and all those other things. The second, I guess, is by being scared and highly aware of the risk there. And so constantly going over the top. I think that my direct team think I'm a total pessimist, because anytime we're doing anything, I'm thinking, oh, the team are going to hate this. They're going to think that we're doing it because of this. And so constantly I'm always being defensive on, here is the reason why we can't do this, because actually in the long term it will allow us to do that. And over communicating on things, which I guess feeds into that last one. And that's become even more important in the last few years. We now have about 300 people. I think we're about 280 at the moment around the business. So I don't have a personal relationship with all of them in the way that I might have done when we had 30 or 40. So need to be a bit more systematic in the communication, and then seeing why we're doing things, because it's not always obvious. And then we have in the last few years started to formalize things like company values and that sort of thing. Things which before, when I remember working for a big power company, and they had their values on the mouse mats. Do you remember mouse mats? You never see them anymore.
I'd forgotten about mouse mats.
Yeah, and around the office. And they were all the, normal bullshit ones that everyone would have: integrity and honesty and that sort of thing. And it bore no relation at all. I was in business debt collection. We definitely weren't encouraged to follow those values on our day-to-day when making phone calls. So I was always a bit anti that sort of thing. But actually, in the last couple of years, we have lent into that. We have put in company values and that sort of thing, and they are up on toilet doors or whatever, and people refer to them. And I think that makes a big difference as well. But I think it has to be all of them. You can't. The point of the power company, it can't just be bunged on a mouse mat and then forgotten. Yeah. People need to be living and breathing it. They need to be understanding the why, and they need to constantly be hearing you talking about that and seeing you talk about the successes that you're having with it.
Yeah. That's fantastic, because as you said, often values are on a mouse mat, they're on a poster on the wall. And I always talk to founders about make your values really personal and specific to your business. Don't use the words that are on everyone's, which is integrity. Use words that really mean something to your business, and it will drive the behaviors in your organization. As you said, really live and breathe it in the day-to-day. And if it's in the fabric and if it's in the language of your organization, you know that you're truly living it.
Obviously, they should be aspirational in the sense that they shouldn't just be turn up to work. But I think that they do also have to be realistic. And so for us, we spent a year on it. I led on it, which I think, again, sends a message of how important it is. Yeah. And we involved, I think we're about 80 or 100 team members or something who were directly involved in terms of coming to workshop. So we treated it as we're discovering the words for what already exists in the business.
Yeah.
And so because it was that, it felt very natural to everyone. All it was putting words against what they already knew Bird and Blend meant. And that makes it far more authentic and makes it stick.
Yeah. It's a lovely way of doing it as well, of genuinely involving the business in the creation of the values of the words that mean something, because those are the people that are living it day in, day out, and not just this exercise where it's like, here's our words now, please, can you live up to this? And like, where's this come from? But something that actually means something to the individual, isn't just top down. Here are our values now. So I really like that approach. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I think that approach has to go through. I mean, even that approach goes to why I say yes to this, or when I've done other podcasts, to be blunt, because one of the reasons I quite like these sorts of things isn't actually about potential customers and that sort of thing here. And we've got marketing teams and that sort of thing who are doing that. And I'm probably not the best face of a business, but team members listen to these. And often the questions that you're asked on a forum like this are perhaps some of the questions that team members are interested in, but might be shy to ask. I try and so tomorrow I'm off to the northeast in Scotland, going to visit the stores. And when I'm staying in the city, I'll just take the teams out for drinks and that sort of thing. I'm trying to create situations where team members can ask difficult questions that they've been wondering about. But often people are a little bit shy to do that. They don't want to. Some team members really aren't, but some don't want to say, well, how does this fit in with that? I don't understand. Whereas on something like that, the host may ask that sort of thing, and it may just click for that team member and allow them to hear it. So I think that piece needs to go through everything which you're doing, really.
I love that. Staff will need to hear that. And I think that's really inspiring to hear founders and owners and C-suite, whatever that happens to be for a business, to really hear the stories behind the business and what really matters. But I also think for customers too, like we're hearing so much now in the industry that, the next generation of the workforce are coming up going, I only want to apply for B Corp companies. These kind of things that organizations stand for and believe in. Products are products, right? And there's multiple competitors and you can choose. And yes, sometimes it's functional, but actually in the world of emotions and storytelling and meaning and what the brand is about and why you exist and what you're being put here to do actually is really powerful for customers to hear, because that's the kind of thing that builds loyalty and builds trust and builds a lifetime of customers coming back because they believe in the values that you believe in. So I think it's super powerful for people to hear these stories.
I agree. I do wonder whether it's still as powerful on the customer side as it was 5 years ago or something. Actually, it was something you mentioned, Ideas Fest. When I was at Ideas Fest, I was thinking they were missing talking about this piece. But I wonder whether there's been a shift from authenticity, meaning almost the Patagonia model, aren't they? They're the kings of it, of what the business stands for, and that feeding through all of its sourcing and the way it treats people and everything, which we fit in very neatly. We were very lucky, but that was something we were passionate about at a time where that worked well from a marketing perspective as well. To now, it feels like there's a shift to still authenticity, but that meaning really knowing the founder and almost like these influencer-led brands. And that kind of what the business stands for almost feels to me like it matters less to customers. I totally agree it matters a lot to team members when they're looking for jobs.
Yeah.
But it seems to matter less to customers these days, which makes me a little bit sad, actually.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure, because I think, look, I completely agree. The current zeitgeist is not in that space. And I think there's a lot going on in politics, which I won't get into. But I think there's a lot going on within the world that means that has completely taken a step back and doesn't kind of bubble up to the surface as the most important things that people are talking about. But I still believe that fundamentally drives meaning, drives values, drives revenue, and drives belief and loyalty and stories that people can get behind. Because I think founder stories and influencer stories and actually people becoming the face of the brand is absolutely happening. It's so important for founders to be visible, to be heard, to have their own brand, arguably, as part of their bigger organization. But what are they going to be talking about if it's not the products or the way they operate and what they believe in and what the business is there to do? Because I think we're in danger of going back to a commodity world if we don't have these powerful stories to tell. So it makes me sad too. And I'm hoping it's just the current economic situation that is clouding actually what is still really important for people. And I suspect that this is going to come back with gusto. I hope it does, because I really believe in it too.
Yeah. I'm the same. And I think it definitely continues to exist in terms of loyalty, which I think, for a business like us, so that's why we've not shifted. I'm not front and center of our socials deliberately because I don't want to be, but also because we've got so many great people that we are a people business, that they should be front and center doing whatever it is that they're doing or whatever it is that they're passionate about. But I think that keeping those, we're continuing to double down as we have more scale and can do more on the purpose side and why we exist and things which we can be doing, and we'll continue to do that and continue to talk about that. And fingers crossed it keeps working. But on the marketing and the commercial side, it does tie people into being loyal to a brand. It might not get them in the first place initially in the way that it did a few years ago, but I think it hopefully turns them into loyal customers.
Yeah, I agree. Because, if you've got an incredibly delicious tasting product and then you learn all these stories about the good that the brand is doing in the world, you're like, wow, this is incredible. As you said, it might not hook you in. It might be the product, but actually these stories I think are really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So behind every successful business, there are so many highs and lows and a whole lot of fear and doubt and stress and cash flow and moments of what on earth am I doing? Has there been some big wobbles in the Bird and Blend journey? And if so, what has kept you going and kind of given you the confidence to kind of ride through that, and what's helped you push through? Because I'm a solo founder. It's tough, right? You ride the highs and lows. So what have those moments been for Bird and Blend, and how have you guys pushed through it? Because you're at 13 years in, which is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of them, and you'll know that it's daily, right? And I don't know how solo founders do it. Like, it was tough enough being one of a pair doing it. These days, actually, Chrissy isn't involved in the day-to-day business. So I see a little bit of that side in the loneliness, but we're at a point where I have a leadership team around me who are hugely qualified and know what they're talking about and all of that sort of thing. So I'm not really on my own. So I think it must be so tough to be a solo founder. because I think that probably the biggest thing which allows founders to get to a certain point, to be blunt, is resilience. It's constantly being pushed down and getting back up. It's not, I'm certainly not one of these, crazy. You do sometimes meet people crazy intelligent who you just think like they were born to do this. I'm definitely not one of them. It's not doing cool stuff with tea. It's not like a groundbreaking idea in the world. It's not the idea. It is the application. I think the application is just, being comfortable with, on a daily basis, having 30 or 40 things kicking you down and still getting up and doing it. You asked for some examples. Well, a couple of really big examples. I'll go for two really big examples, actually. But the bigger one is around people and values, which was we track our employee satisfaction internally twice a year at the moment. A survey goes out and we basically a NPS survey. Would a team member recommend us as a place to work is the core question. And we track the scores. And there was a point a few years ago where those scores really plummeted. When we were at about 7 stores, respectively. I don't think I clicked how quickly the kind of forgiveness you got from the team would plummet when they were no longer knowing you really well. At about 7 stores, the teams knew me really well. I had my toolbox in the car. I would turn up when something went wrong in the stores. I'd be there, drilling or whatever it was, fixing it. That gives you a chance to chat to everyone. Yeah. Suddenly at about 7, you just can't do that anymore. You need to start having other people who are there. And we had no HR. We had no HR team, no HR people at all. We had no policies, nothing like that. And suddenly, I think the lack of that led to team members, I don't want to say unhappy, because we always had a very good positive, so compared to most companies, we're still all right. But it just wasn't where I wanted to be. And that one really hit me hard. It took us a few years to fix. We're now in a good place. Actually, I think that survey goes out this week, so we'll find out. That's the number which makes me worried every year, actually. It took a few years to fix it, but it also was the biggest time where I was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm done with this. So that one was really tough. And then on the kind of financial commercial side, COVID would be the really obvious one, that initial part of it.
Yeah.
Where we were wondering, well, what the hell is this thing? But what do we do? Like, customers aren't coming out onto the high street. We had, I don't know how many stores we had at that time, let's say 12, 14, something like that. And we were just seeing sales dropping. Team were really unhappy about working, frankly.
Yeah.
But equally, we're a small business. We don't sit on loads of cash. We need the cash to be coming in order to pay the wages. And we had a point where we had some team who were really unhappy about still working. And so we sent out a kind of email to the team and said, when you close your doors tonight, we don't know when you'll be reopening them. Close them in a way where you don't know when they'll open up. We've got enough money in the bank to hit payroll this month. And then hopefully by next month, we'll have figured out a plan. And then fortunately, I think a day or two later, closures were announced, nationwide closures were announced. And then furlough was announced a couple of days after that, wasn't it? And so some relief, but that was pretty tough where we were thinking, Jesus, we've actually just cut off all revenue. And clearly we've still got cost there. So that was a pretty challenging time. And I guess the final part of your question was, you asked, how do I deal with it? Well, it goes back to my point about resilience. And I think having your eyes on what actually matters, which to me personally is that purpose piece. On a personal level, I hope when my time comes, I'll have left the world a little bit better than I found it. It's the cliche, isn't it? But by us existing, we're using up materials and resources and doing harm to the planet. I'm hoping that the positive outweighs that a little bit. And I think that Bird and Blend is a hugely effective tool to be able to do that. The other part is on clearly your personal lifestyle. Well, before we started this, Chrissy and I were living out in a town called Fernie, skiing every day and the time of our lives. And we had nothing. Like, we lived above this tiny little box room above a nightclub where like your stuff would get shaken off the shelves every night and stuff. We had no money ever, and we were having a great time. And we always used to joke that we'll end up back there. So Christy and I were married. We're actually not married anymore, but through the journey, we've got married a bit, got divorced, still good mates. We used to joke that we'll end up back in that town, Fernie. For skiers out there, Fernie is absolutely incredible and the best place in the world to ski. We always say we'll end up back there either way. The only difference, if Bird and Blend goes well, we might have our own hot tub. If it goes badly, I'll go back to work in bars and shit. Like, I was happy. I don't need a hot tub. We used to climb into other people's anyway when they were away.
I love the barometer of success as a hot tub. That's fantastic.
So it doesn't matter, does it? And you meet some founders who are obsessed with taxes and moving to Dubai and all this sort of shit.
Yeah.
And I think because I'm relatively indifferent, it's very nice to have, to be able to order takeaways without having to worry about it and that sort of thing. But I don't need to be a millionaire. So it just takes the pressure off a little bit,
Yeah, totally. And I love that your two moments that you talked about, at the heart of the concern was the people and the staff. And that you were saying that actually your number one worry is the employee satisfaction number and whether that's positive or not. And I think that shows so much about you as a founder and what's important to you. And it's so lovely that actually the wobble moments are about people and how they feel and ultimately their welfare. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that says a lot about founders. And, when we go back and talk about founders and their stories and the businesses, these are the stories that people want to hear because they're like, wow, the founder really cares. And I think that's such a lovely thing as part of a brand. Often those are stories that don't come out and they're so powerful. And that's so wonderful. And it's also really interesting about how you talked about the employee satisfaction dropped when you weren't able to be as close to the business anymore, because there's that feeling of connection to the purpose and what you're ultimately there to do, and having that ongoing conversation with you when you went into the stores to do the drilling and the fixing is that they had the connection to the business and the bigger purpose and the bigger objective and the bigger vision through conversations with you. So it's also such a lovely story for founders in terms of how they make sure that you bottle your founder energy as you grow and as you scale, and how do you make sure everyone feels that even if they're not seeing you on a daily basis. So what a wonderful story.
Yeah.
How do you bottle that now?
And the big question. Well, fundamentally, that's my job these days. Yeah. It's the most important part of the job, trying to do that. And there's lots of ways. So one is the constant communication and putting as much effort into your internal communication as you are externally. In fact, in some ways, it probably is more. Whilst we have a marketing team, I am constantly focused on internal content. I don't write anything that's going externally, but I constantly talk into our teams. And that's through as many channels as we possibly can. So for us, there is a weekly email which goes out, which has some information on commercial performance, but it also has, here's some things which happened last week, just in terms of like cool stuff which happened in the business. Here's pictures of dogs. Here's the bit which I really like, which we've only started doing in the last year or so. We really impact some customers well beyond what you would think a nice cup of tea is. And there's a very individual reason for every customer and a story behind that. But it can be that our store in Borough Market is right next to St Thomas or Guy's Hospital, one of the hospitals in London, which I think has a big cancer unit. And so it's not unusual that people will end up in our store when they've come out and just been given some very bad news and are almost sort of aimlessly walking the streets of London. And because if you go into our stores, the teams are just there chatting, being happy, lovely people, not focused on sales, but trying to create a great environment that people want to come in and be in. Sometimes that little bit of kindness from a team member who doesn't know anything about what's going on with that customer, but might give them a free drink or just a conversation, has a huge impact on that customer. And so we, on a daily basis, get customers emailing in with that sort of thing of, it wasn't just a cup of tea, this was actually a huge thing for me, and I really, really appreciate it. It made a huge difference. We realised that we were getting so many of these, but we weren't really talking about them. They were just another, great, cool. So we talk about those in that email every week, which is one of my favourite bits of it. As well as the email, there's in-person stuff. So I spend a large amount of time going round, visiting, whilst I think about 30% of our team, 40% of the team are in the warehouse. We've got sort of our office, warehouse production, fulfillment, all of that sort of stuff is all under one currently, or two roofs actually, but we're about to have a third, but all within 5-minute walk of each other down here. But then the rest of the team are off spread all around the country. So I spend quite a lot of time sitting on trains and behind the wheel just to go and spend 10 minutes, just kind of to show face and to I guess, send that message that it is worth my time to sit on a train. Tomorrow I'm off up to Newcastle, Glasgow, Edinburgh, York, which are a lot of time on trains, but it is worth that because those team members are the important thing. And it sort of sends a message, doesn't it, that myself, other members of the senior team do that. We have WhatsApp groups. So we have both just sort of fun group, which anyone can post in. But we also, every week, I do a little video on there, which is very cringy. But I've now been doing it for a year, so I've kind of got used to it. I just give a kind of 3-minute, here's what's going on from my perspective. I talked the other week about there's a school in Kenya that we're funding to build, or actually complete building. When US aid was pulled out, they'd started building another building, which was going to be a kitchen, but it frees up a classroom. And then they pulled out US aid, and so it was just sat there unfinished. We'd gone to visit some of our actually not current supply chain, but we will be starting to buy from a factory round the corner. And we'd said, show us some stuff in your community, and they'd taken us to this school. And we're now funding for that to happen. So one of the random things was I think we'd had to get them to set up a board and certain amounts of governance of things. It's amazingly complex to you think, oh, we'll just send some money. It's not quite that simple when you're dealing with Kenya or something like that. So I sort of talked about that and the challenges of trying to actually do that. But on the flip side, there was 200 kids there. This is us putting in new toilets and those sorts of things is a real impact. But the team who are working hard in the stores every day and putting cash in not cash, we're cashless, putting money into the till, are allowing us to fund and things. And I think those sorts of little stories, almost especially if they're just kind of off the cuff, I'm going to talk about this today, really resonate with teams. There's all sorts of other methods, but fundamentally getting people talking and realizing that there's more than just the sales number that matter.
I love that. Very selfishly, because I've built my whole new business on human storytelling. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is these stories. Because as you said, in a retail, because I was thinking of the tea moment, there are so many conversations and moments and bonding and big moments and small moments and tears and happiness and joy that happens over a cup of tea. Just the physical act of people getting together over a moment creates such belonging and conversation and such important or really tiny, but actually really important moments in people's lives. The stories you talked about of people coming into the store, and even if it's just having a conversation, is so powerful. And it triggers me back to COVID. I lived on my own in COVID, and there was a coffee shop in Henley where I live that stayed open. And afterwards they very sadly shut about a year after COVID. And I went in the build up to them shutting. I was like, I don't think you realize that you kind of saved me in COVID, because I had a place to go and I had people to talk to, live. Like, I came and had coffee from you every day, not because I needed the coffee, is because I wanted the conversation. So these moments can be so powerful for people, and the role that retail can play. Everyone's obsessed with e-com, but retail is such an incredible space to create an experience for people, and something you just can't replicate online.
Yeah. I mean, we try to as far as possible, because 40% of our business is online, a bit more is online. But you're totally right. And we had exactly that piece during COVID, actually, that I can remember us having multiple debates on. We could have had all the stores open, Hotel Chocolate had all theirs open because we fell under food. So could have claimed we were an essential service. My attitude was always, it's a bit dodgy. However, we do take away drinks in the stores. And I was the same. I lived on my own, and there's a coffee shop round the corner that every day I'd walk the dog to. And it made a real difference, just that going and buying that item. And we would have this constant thing of, should we open the stores for that reason? The irony was the pushback from customers and team was, oh, they're just profiteering. Opening the stores lost us money because you had to take people off furlough. Suddenly you're paying their salaries. All of the other expenses of running the store, especially at that point, were pretty high, but weren't actually many customers who were wanting to do that. Whilst there are a few exceptions, ice cream shop around the corner from us, which had a constant queue all the way down the seafront, it wasn't a profitable venture. And we had this constant thing of, well, should we do it and just accept the losses and the fact that some of our customers and things are going to think we're just profiteering, because it makes a difference to that small number of people, but it makes a real difference too. Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think what we ended up doing is saying that we would leave it up to store managers, that they sort of barricaded their door and sort of served over the counter a little bit. And I think some of the stores did, some of them didn't. Some would open on like Friday or Saturday or something, and just for a few hours for people to come and get a drink or whatever.
That's so nice. That's so nice. So the final question that we always ask on the Ripple Impact is to our wave makers. So we call our guests wave makers because they're making waves on the world. And you and your business are certainly doing that. What advice would you give to aspiring wave makers?
The Nike slogan of just do it. There's a perception that people starting a business, whatever it is, have all the answers or are really clever or whatever it is. As I've probably proven over the last 30 minutes or so, I don't have many answers. I'm not that smart. But that kind of resilience piece plays into it. The difference between people who are doing it and people who aren't doing it is the people who said, yeah, I'll give it a whirl. And then not just I'll give it a whirl as a one-off, but I'll keep doing this. I'll keep getting up and keep going in and keep showing up, or whatever it is. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And of course, the piece which helps you with that, and has certainly helped me with it, is having a really solid idea of why you're doing it on a personal level. But then if it's a business, building that into a business as well is, of course, pretty key as well.
Amazing. I love the just do it. Like, roll up your sleeves and just go for it is fabulous advice. And maybe don't think too much. And I just love how your answers are all so humble. You're like, oh, I'm not that smart. It was like, I beg to differ. So it's been a very inspiring and very brilliant conversation. And so, Mike Turner, thank you so much for sharing your journey so openly with us. It's a journey of such powerful reminders that brands with soul, with purpose, and real human connection from your staff to the stores doesn't happen by accident. It happens with serious intent, serious passion, with purpose at its heart, and a real meaning and almost obsession to keep that at the soul and the heart of your business as you've grown consistently over the last 13 years. So a huge congratulations to you and the team. It's such a wonderful brand with such wonderful stories, built ripple by ripple, decision by decision into something really fabulous. So thank you for being so open with your stories today and shining a light on your business and inspiring others and how they can really live with purpose. So thank you so much for your time today.
Cheers, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. For everyone podcast listening and YouTube watching, keep chasing your curiosity, stay brave in your creativity, and never underestimate the ripple impact of these small moments. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this with anyone who will love this episode. And if you're looking to elevate the human storytelling of your brand, please get in touch with us at Ripple Impact so we can see how we can help your business grow. That is a wrap on this Ripple episode. Tune in weekly for more bold voices and inspiring wavemaker guests just like Mike. We will see you all next week. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.